In this edition of TIC Talk by the American Chiropractor, Jacqueline and I caught up with Dr. Mike Carberry. Dr. Carberry is an entrepreneur, author, and public speaker. His mission is to help end the opioid crisis in the U.S. through healthcare reform. He's the co-founder of Advanced Medical Integration, and this month authored the article, Integration, Reaching the 90%. Look for this article in the January 2023 issue of the American Chiropractor and listen on to understand Dr. Carberry's vision for the future of healthcare. All right, so here we are. Welcome, Dr. Michael Carberry. So welcome, here we are, Dr. Michael Carberry from AMI, and we're here to talk about the article that you had written in the most recent, the American Chiropractor magazine, which is in the January edition, Integration, Reaching the 90%. And of course, an important topic for chiropractors out there. My name is Joe Bush. I'm the editor of the American Chiropractor, and Jacqueline Toussard is the publisher. So welcome. This is TAC Tic Talk. Thank you. So Dr. Carberry, tell us a bit about integration. What is integration for a chiropractor, right? I mean, most of us are out there treating back pain, neck pain. What is it about integration that dovetails nicely with the profession, and how can it help someone in the field that really wants to broaden their horizons?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's actually, I get asked to define integration because people don't really know what that means. So I know when I first started doing this model, I was a straight chiropractic practice and I was doing 700 visits a week. And that's because I got injured and chiropractic helped me. So when we integrated, I wanted to make sure that it wasn't like just an add-on thing where we have somebody else that does something else. I wanted to make sure we worked together. And integrated to me says like gears meshing together. So my wife is a head injury physical therapist. So she was waking people up out of a coma. That's what she did as a career. And when she did that, she was on a team. And the team was a physical therapist, a cognitive therapist, a speech therapist, and an occupational therapist, all working under the direction of a physiatrist. And the physiatrist wanted it set up that way because she knew that the physical therapist and occupational therapist, all the different therapists had different professional knowledge. And she wanted to hear what they had to say so she could make better decisions for the patient. So in this model, we did the same thing. We wanted to have it integrated so we're working together. So my definition of integration is different professionals all working together on the same patient for a better outcome to the patient. And when we do that, because we're working with different things that we can do, it actually adds income to the practice. But that is not our primary drive. Our primary drive is better outcomes. The side effect is better incomes.
Without a doubt, outcomes has to be the central goal. So, but holy smokes, 700 patients a day in a straight chiropractic clinic. I mean, what did that?
7 a week.
700 a week. Okay, I was going to say, holy smokes, but still, 700 a week is quite an undertaking. So, I mean, you were doing the traditional, like the chart with the nerve flow and all that, or?
If I can give you some backstory on that. So I got injured. My undergrad degree is in marketing. I did not grow up thinking I was going to be a chiropractor. So I graduated with a marketing degree in 1983. And a few years after that, I started dating a girl who later became my wife. We were walking on the beach one day and I was trying to show off. So I jumped up on the platform on the beach for the lifeguards. And when I jumped down, I didn't do a bad jump. I landed on my feet, but I felt like I got struck by lightning. I actually had an electrical current pass through my body. I collapsed on the beach and I was paralyzed. I couldn't move. And so she was right there and people came running over. They saw me at the beach and I said, don't let anybody touch me. And she's telling people, don't touch them, don't touch them. And then I could feel the feeling coming back in my body. And as it came back in, I had pain down my arm and pain up the side of my head. So that is a stinger, which I know what it is now, but I didn't know what a stinger was back then. And apparently the doctor at the emergency room didn't know either, because when I told him the story, he's like, I think you broke your neck. And they strapped me into a headboard and then they took a bazillion x-rays and my world was spinning, right? So then they came out and said, you didn't break your neck. We don't know what you did. Here's a bunch of medication. And I started taking medication. Well, thank God this was back in the 80s, because if they were opioids, I might not be sitting here right now. So I was taking Flexeril and anti-inflammatories. And Flexeril is a muscle relaxer. And the effect it had on my body was if I took one pill, I would sleep for 10 hours. They had me taking 3 a day. So if you do the math, you know that I wasn't doing very much. So I went to a chiropractor. My wife went with me to protect me. And when he started, first of all, she watched him and she leaned over to me. He stepped out of the room. She goes, "This is totally different than I thought it would be." And I didn't know what she was talking about, but her background in head injury was to wake up comatose patients. And the way you do that is you put them on a tilt table while they're in a coma and you load their weight bearing joints for 40 minutes twice a day. And now at the time, I didn't know what that did. I do know what it does now. That stimulates proprioception to the brain, which stimulates a process called synaptogenesis, which means you make shortcuts and pathways to make your brain more efficient. And they were trying to knit around the damaged part of the brain. When she saw the chiropractor looking at the vertebrae and trying to see which vertebrae were moving, she's like, "Holy crap, these guys unstick the weight-bearing joints." So her analogy to me was, it's like taking a computer that's missing the keys and putting the keys back on. So she immediately fell in love with chiropractic, like on the spot. So I started going to chiropractor. Things I didn't even know were related to my neck injury that I had before, like headaches, went away, and I was blown away. And I decided, this is my career. I need to quit doing what I'm doing and go back to school and become a chiropractor. So I was very driven. The reason I came out of school and grew so fast is I was trying to get the world under chiropractic care. So I think I was doing 425 visits a week by myself in 4 days when I hired my first associate. And the only reason I did that is it was starting to beat me up pretty good.
Oh, it'll beat you up, that's for sure. Yeah.
We were doing 500 visits a week when I hired my second associate, and that's when we went to 700. So there was 3 of us working on 700 visits a week. It was a very straight chiropractic clinic, not because I was, it's just what I wanted to do to help people. Here's what happened, and this is the reason I integrated. I would treat patients. They would tell me, "You did fantastic. I had things happen to me and I got better in ways I never got better before with any other doctor. This was amazing. But my neck problem's coming back. Can you adjust it and just make it go away? And I don't want to go through a long care plan." Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay. And so I started doing this, and that number of people saying that grew. And I was doing about, of the 700, 200 of them were maintenance visits. And it was bugging me. And I didn't tell this to anybody. It's probably the first time I'm ever publicly telling this. But I was like, why can I not fix these people so it doesn't come back? So I started doing research on it. And my wife and I came upon Vladimir Yanda with upper cross and lower cross syndrome. I'm sure you're familiar with that. Joe, you're a chiropractor, right?
I am a chiropractor, yes.
Yeah. So then when I read his stuff, he said, when you're treating chronic degenerative problems, the issue is people adapt their posture to this problem long before they seek treatment because the symptoms are the last thing. And so he said there's a pattern to the muscles of how you lose this posture. So I started testing our patients. I said to my wife, I'm going to go in and test some patients to see if they have this. Every patient I tested had upper cross and lower cross syndrome. So I went, that's why they're not staying better. I'm not addressing their postural distortions. So we were going to do a PT-DC program with my wife being a PT and me a DC. And we found out that in Pennsylvania, a physical therapist is not allowed to work off the referral of a chiropractor. In fact, they told us, if you do, you're going to lose your license. Wow. So somebody suggested, why don't you bring in an MD? And I remember saying this, that you'll get a kick out of this, Joe, over my dead body. So, and here I am 25 years later teaching this, because here's what happened. We put out an ad. This was back in the 90s when HMOs were big, and a couple of hospitals, HMOs were underway out in Northeast, and they shut a couple of hospitals down. So we advertised in Philadelphia and in Pittsburgh, and we had 300 medical doctors apply for the job. I remember the mail lady bringing in trays of resumes in envelopes going, what are you guys selling? And I'm like, this is an application for a job. So we started having group interviews with medical doctors. And what I started hearing blew my mind. I'm tired of prescribing drugs. I'm sick of giving people, having 2 minutes to examine them and having to write a prescription. I want to do something different. And I did not expect to hear that. And when I did, I realized, you know what? These people are giving up on their career, and they got into healthcare to help people, just like chiropractors. Not all, 80% of chiropractors, 80% of medical doctors got into healthcare with the purpose to help other people. And then they got into the system was just write a prescription. And a lot of them were looking for something different. So I realized there was an opportunity there to position chiropractic in amongst traditional healthcare by having these guys work with us. That's how I got into it.
That's amazing.
Your story is funny to me because that over my dead body experience seems to be kind of something that I've heard from other people. It's like never say never. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's like attaching you to it. You know what I mean? It's all of a sudden it's like the universe just has this way of like flipping the switch. But,
yes, and it did flip that switch on me, and it didn't happen instantly. It was in segments. Like, for example, I had to wrestle with a lot of things. One of the things I had to wrestle with was I had this 700 visit a week practice, and I was the main guy. I was the personality that created that business and ran that business. And there was a lot of positive things about that. I was important. I'd walk through and people would point, there's the guy that started it. But the things that were not good was I could never leave. I always had to be there.
Right.
I was the personality. It was built upon me. And what I started realizing is, you know what I need to do? I need to build the team as a system-driven team, not a personality. And when I did that, that solved another problem. Now I could take a vacation. Now I could actually open another practice and not have to be there. Now I could run AMI and be in another state. So to give you an idea, I haven't lived within 120 miles of any practice that I've owned for the last 20 years.
Wow.
And every practice I've opened has been successful.
Tell us the secrets. We want to know. How do you do it?
Well, it's important to have secrets because I had to figure it out. I had to wrestle with a lot of things. One, was it legal to do it? What's the right way to do it? So I paid a lot of money to attorneys to figure that out. And we figured it out. We found out it was different in every state. So we had to figure it out. But a lot of states now, because of what I first observed in the interview with the medical doctors of being fed up with healthcare, there's been a strong decline in the number of family practices or internal medicine doctors. And so there's a shortage, which is why there's now nurse practitioners. The nurse practitioners are there to fill the shortage. Nurse practitioners, when I first started back in 1996, were virtually brand new and had no autonomy. And there was very few of them. Today, there's about 300,000 in the United States. Almost in every state, they can open up their own practice. They don't have to have a medical doctor on site. In about half the states, they don't even need to have medical collaboration at all. Wow. And that's because of the number of doctors that have dropped out of healthcare. So to me, I go, this is a way to actually take those doctors who are considering dropping out of healthcare and revitalize their purpose, because what they want is to help people. And I always thought I'd run into a lot of resistance with the medical doctors over chiropractic, and that was not true. There was a couple, but not many. The vast majority of medical doctors I've found over the years have a very reverent respect for chiropractic, because one of them said this to me. He said, if we were in a plane crash and it was you, me, and another person on the plane and we survived and ended up on a deserted island, in 2 weeks, you'd have 2 patients. And I was like, wow, I never thought of that. He goes, because I need a prescription pad and I don't have it. So they really respect, how can these guys get people well with their hands? And just by looking at them and feeling how they move and looking at x-rays. So it's been a really great collaboration. My belief in chiropractic got stronger working with medical people, not weaker. Like right now, I have a nurse practitioner that I work with. And the nurse practitioner, when she first got out of school, and this is in our clinic in Chattanooga, she first got out of school, she got offered a job where they paid her higher than other nurse practitioners. So she's like, great. She took the job and she was managing pain. She was in a pain management clinic and she thought, this is great. I can help people with pain. And what was happening is the doctors would walk up and say, hey, could you sign this prescription for this guy's OxyContin? So she'd sign it. And then another doctor would walk up, could you sign a prescription for this guy's Vicodin? And she'd sign it. And they were asking her to sign all of the opioid prescriptions. And she said to a nurse one day, isn't it funny how all these doctors want me to sign their prescriptions? And the nurse said, that's because when the FBI shows up, they're going to be looking for you. And my nurse practitioner was like, oh my God. She's a new grad out of school. Then her mom is in a hospital having a serious condition. She's by her mom's bedside. And one of the doctors shows up in the hospital room. Could you sign these prescriptions? And she threw them out and quit and went looking for the most non-drug job she could find. And she found us.
Wow.
So now she tells me, she said to me, after she worked for me a few months, she said, you ruined me. And I said, what do you mean by that? She said, I could never work anywhere else. This is where I'm going to retire. So we really have an opportunity not only to educate patients, but educate the providers about what we do as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really, I love it.
Dr. Carver, I wanted to jump in and ask a question because I had the honor of getting to see you and your wife, Colleen, at the Chiro Congress just last week. And I was really excited to hear a couple things. One, if you can tell us all a little bit about just how many people you guys have currently in AMI that, under, and then also another question was she'd mentioned about the alignment method that you guys utilize to ensure their success.
Yeah. So when you say how many people are involved, do you mean employees or do you mean clients?
Okay, I guess both. Let's see I don't know. How many does it take to run? It sounds like you've got a mammoth size operation, but I don't know how many people it actually takes.
Well, we started signing people up. We started AMI in 2013, the end of 2013. The reason we did it, because I was never going to teach this model to other people. I was just going to open my own clinics. But the reason we did it literally is because I have a family member who injured his ankle and was prescribed an opioid at 17 years old. It's not my immediate family. It's my brother's family. And by 18, he was a heroin addict. And so I did not want to go to his funeral. My brother kicked him out of the house because he was stealing their jewelry and their electronics. So I had to go up and find him, and that was not a fun thing to do. You go find a heroin addict who's living on the street, who's 18 years old, and you got to go into some pretty dingy places. And it took me a day and a half to find him with no sleep. We found him, convinced him after 5 hours that he would go into a program. He did. Then he lived with me for a year so we could get him straight. And now fast forward, 10 years later, he's still clean, has a great job. He's married, has a house, has a side business of being an electrician. So it was a real win. It was a real success. But it was right after that we realized we need to expand faster and we need to get more doctors doing this. So if he had a clinic in New Jersey that he could go to, he would have never become a heroin addict. And so that's why we did AMI. So to do AMI, over the years, we've signed up people. We've probably signed over 750 practices to put our model in place. It's a relationship over a period of time. We get them started, and then what we're doing is getting them started and letting them go on their merry way. But then we realized there's a group forming that is powerful, that has medical advocates talking about chiropractic. And so we thought we need to get this group aligned so we could actually help us grow as a practice and create more of a grassroots demand for chiropractic from the patient. So here's what we came up with. We partnered with Grant Cardone and Brandon Dawson. Grant Cardone is a tycoon, or he's a billionaire in real estate, and he loves our model and said he would do anything to help us. He introduced us to Brandon Dawson, who is an expert in creating bigger businesses. He took his first company public when he was 29 years old, and it was in healthcare. So he showed us, he said, doctors are not great business people. So what we can do is when your guys get integrated and they start making more money, they're going to grow and they're going to run into financial barriers. Like, for example, our average client starts at around 300,000 in gross revenue. In 18 months, probably 70% of them are doing double, triple, or quadruple what they were doing. So for us to get somebody from 300,000 to $1 million, it's not easy, but it's not hard. We do it on a regular basis. But there's a barrier at 3 million that is hard for guys to get over. So when they get over $1 million, they kind of go up and they go down. They go up and they go down. And that barrier is a business barrier, not a clinical barrier. So what we did was we started hiring people with their MBAs and their PhDs in finance, operations, marketing, and human resources and employee development. And so they are now our coaches, our advanced coaches. So when somebody gets over $1 million, they have the option to go into this program where they're actually learning how to build their business. We've gotten guys up to over 10 million in one practice. So now what happens is if you're running a practice that's generating $3 million, you cannot be doing that as a clinician. You have to be doing that as an executive. It's too big. So if we get somebody to perfect that where they're doing 5 or 6 million, well, they can open up another one because they're not a clinician. They can just keep doing it. So our goal is to push. We have a number of clients right now working on their third practice. So what we're trying to do is their value up to a point where as a group, we are a much more valuable entity and we'll have a bigger voice in lobbying. We'll have a bigger voice when the patients start demanding it, we can go to the insurance companies and say, we want our own fee schedule because we have all these doctors doing this number and we get our own fee schedule and they will give it to us. I've already had some of them, I'd have attorneys reach out to me and say, listen, when you're ready to create your own fee schedule, we know how to negotiate with insurance companies because we're getting this big group. So we now have a whole bunch of active clients that are connected. To run that, we have 55 employees at AMI. So we have the whole sixth floor of a bank building And we have
Uh-huh.
a classroom here. We do trainings here every month, trainings for
Mhm.
marketing, trainings for sales. And then in my clinic in Chattanooga, we have a training center. That's a 5,300 square foot clinic with a 3,500 foot classroom attached to it. And we do trainings up there every month. So, our goal is to do all the teaching and training for our clients and their employees so they can actually grow to be a very successful medical practice that has chiropractic as one of its main tools. And that puts us at the seat at the table of these are the typical care plans that should be done. And basically my philosophy is this: chiropractic's been at it for 130 years. We've gotten 10% of the population. We are specifically marketing to the 90% that would never go. And we're getting them to come into a medical practice, and then they're agreeing to a care plan that includes chiropractic. There's not really a lot of drugs. We're not prescribing any of the family practice drugs. The only thing we're doing is injecting things like lidocaine or procaine or marcaine, which are very benign substances. Lidocaine is 99% saline solution. And we're doing that following Janet Travell's protocols. We're also doing things like regenerative medicine, but we're using it very conservatively, but it's to help patients get to a higher level of healing in a shorter
Mhm.
period of time. And what happens is these patients get to a better outcome. The doctor has more income. They can expand. And now we have this group that's being very successful, and we have a bigger presence in healthcare. And our goal is to change the healthcare system, to get that 90% to say, I want chiropractic included on my care plan. The funny thing about that is our number one objection to care is, do I have to do the chiropractic?
Mhm.
So the medical people go, yep, that's why we recommend it. And they go,
Wow.
okay. They go just like this. Okay.
Right, exactly. Exactly. They're like all
Yeah.
those TikTok videos I've seen, like of people ripping people's heads off. I mean, it's like, so
Right, right,
totally
right.
understand. I mean, seriously,
Yeah. What
some
they
of this
say, we're
stuff will trouble.
supervising. These are good chiropractors here. They're not going to hurt anybody. So you
Hmm.
need to get it because it's part of your care plan. And they do. And at the end, I'll tell you a story about that. This just happened. I was up at my clinic, and a patient came to me and said that she was finishing. And they said, Dr. Carberry, this is Mrs. Smith. She's graduating her care plan today. And I said, congratulations. Did they help you? She said, they really helped me. And then she said this. She goes, you know, I never thought I'd go to a chiropractor my whole life. And I know that I'm here at a medical clinic, but I know that chiropractic was a big part of this care plan. And I realized if I didn't do that, I probably wouldn't have got as good as I did. So this has changed my viewpoint of chiropractic. And I gave her a hug. She gave me a hug, and then she started crying, and then she went and hugged the chiropractor. And I realized we are doing what we wanted to do. We are actually getting people to get chiropractic who never would have gotten chiropractic
Mhm.
otherwise.
And she
That is
got
what we
it.
do.
That's like the whole big idea, right? The whole
That is
like,
the
Mhm.
big
I'm yeah. So I mean, no, congratulations. What a model to create. And over the last 10 years, 9 years, just
idea. Yeah.
explosive growth. So I mean, clearly
That's
there's a need for
amazing.
it. Yeah,
Mhm.
So,
absolutely.
Jacqueline, you did ask one question there. What was the secret? So, I did actually create a blueprint
Okay.
for my own practices. Because see, when I
Uh-huh.
first started, I was only doing my own practices. So my wife and I, she's very, very detail oriented. So we created checklists. What do we have to have in place to make this practice successful? So we created this blueprint. The blueprint is actually to help people or to help my employees be successful at running my clinics. So now what I've done is I've opened these blueprints up for free to anybody who wants to get them. So if they want to get this blueprint, you should go to online and type in amiblueprint.com. And there's
Mhm.
all the tools. And I give them to people so that because see, for me to be successful, I got to get all chiropractors more successful, not just the integrated ones. So if somebody's interested in how to build their practice, amiblueprint.com, and you'll see the tools there. And then what will happen is you'll be in your practice someday and the patient will walk up and say, I never thought I'd get chiropractic, but here I am and it worked and I'm glad I did it.
Wow, that is such a great testimony. Honestly, we always say, because we're coming from a family of chiropractors, 4 chiropractors. Dr. Joe's the editor and practicing chiropractor. Our father founded this 45 years ago. And one of the things that we always look for is other doctors out there like you who are chiropractors in the trenches, along with us, who actually have skin in the game. And so you're definitely what we can call an industry expert. And it is such an honor to hear your story and see what you've been able to do, you and your wife, Colleen. I don't want to underscore her input because then I think about, the PT and the chiropractor. I've even heard, I remember years ago about a fictional love story between a PT and a DC. And here you guys have actually made it work.
Yeah, we have actually. I'll tell you something that's even one. I don't know how much time we have left, but I'll just give you one more tidbit.
Uh-huh.
What started happening in the last 2 years? Now
Uh-huh.
we have MDs and PTs reaching out to us to create this model and hiring chiropractors to work with them. I did a podcast yesterday for new prospects, and half of the people on that podcast were MDs wanting to do this model, giving
Now
up their
tell me,
family practice and wanting to do this.
well, then tell me then too. So now this makes me think, how much time does it take? Because even a regular standard chiropractor who wants to get involved in this, how many hours of study do you think to get into the AMI type doctor, or if they want to do work, and collaborate?
Well, see, what we do is we provide the education for them. We do give them homework. They're going to need to at least set aside 10 hours a week to do this. But if they set aside 20, they'll go faster, which means the guys will go, I'm adjusting all day. I have no time to do this. Well, the funny thing about time is unless you do something to create more time, you will never have time. I love treating, but if you stay stuck in the trenches treating all the time, you will never change the landscape of healthcare. You'll change the life of people you get your hands on, but not change the landscape. And what I've evolved to is I realized my responsibility is to change the landscape. So I actually had to get myself removed from the treating lines and into the executive lines. That's what we try to do with our clients, especially when they get a practice that's doing over $1 million. You can't be running a practice like that and be doing all the adjusting. It just is impossible.
Exactly. So that's the chiropractic conundrum there, Dr. Carberry. And I think, Jacqueline, the MDDC, that was an MDDC, not MDCPT. But J.C. Smith wrote that book you were commenting on. But
yeah, I thought it was
sorry to divert. But yeah, without a doubt, I mean, this kind of system, it's the frustrating realization after 10 to 15 years in practice. Someone's like, holy smokes, man, I'm at the top. I can't duplicate what I do.
People make more money, and I don't have time to see more people. So,
well, and that's actually in our mission statement. We always say that many chiropractors, because our father who founded the magazine, we would find that most chiropractors want to change the world when they open up their clinic, and then they get caught up with just the day-to-day grind of the local regional issues of their practice. So that's where we're always, I mean, to me, to find a doctor like you, you're an anomaly who's managed to successfully overcome, and obviously, like I've said, I don't want to underscore Colleen's input there too, because the two of you are a real power couple to make this happen. I can see even in the videos. I think there's like a landing page that you've offered for the doctors to access. And I noticed that she's in a lot of these educational videos. Is that correct?
Yes, she is. Yes, she is. She's very much into it. Well, a lot of our rehab program involves the neurological input to the brain that she used to use to wake people up. I mean, think about it. Most chiropractors don't realize when somebody has a coma, they put them in weight-bearing position twice a day. When they come out of it, they teach them to sit up. When they can sit up, they teach them to stand up. When they teach them to stand up, then they teach them to walk. Then they teach them to play catch. And what they're doing is they're loading and unloading weight-bearing joints to program the brain. Well, 90% of the weight-bearing joints are between occiput and sacrum, which is why my wife fell in love with chiropractic, because it basically is how, like when I went to school, they were still teaching the garden hose theory, that it was the flow out. But really, it's the input into the brain that makes the brain more efficient. For example, I cited a lot of studies when I spoke. I was the keynote speaker in New Jersey this year at their chiropractic conference. And you guys saw me on stage at Florida. But I was talking about the different things that chiropractic adjustments do. And it shifts the brain out of sympathetic nervous system into parasympathetic. Well, if you're always in sympathetic, it's going to kill you because that's fight or flight. Parasympathetic is where you heal your body. And the adjustment has been proven to shift that patient from sympathetic into parasympathetic, just like exercise does, just like stretching a muscle does. It shifts that, it makes that body able to heal itself. And that's what I love about chiropractic.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So where did you go to school? Sorry to jump on your words there, Jacqueline, but Dr. Carberry, where did you graduate from?
I went to Life. I graduated in 1991. I got to admit, the reason I went to Life, I asked the chiropractor I was going to, where do you go to learn this? And he said, Marietta, Georgia. Okay. That was all the research I did.
Yeah,
when I got down to school, I'm like, I guess there is other schools.
Oh, that's hilarious.
They're all good. I've worked with chiropractors from all the schools. They're all good. They all have their pluses and minuses.
Oh, well, I know we're almost wrapping things up, but I wanted to hit on this again because I remember this is one thing that Colleen was mentioning because I know you mentioned your blueprint, amiblueprint.com. But I
Yes.
wanted to mention, she mentioned an extra special thing, which was too, because you've always got your to-do list, but she mentioned, and she used the word alignment, which I thought was so beautiful coming from chiropractors. So
Yeah.
if you want to expound a little bit on that, because I think it was like this, that was one of the secret ingredients to success.
Well, the alignment is you have to have this. Now you're talking about your own staff. And this is one of the things that our HR people and our employee development people teach our elite clients. They have to have
Mm-hmm.
alignment from their staff. So the
Mm-hmm.
staff have that skin in the game with your company. And the way we do
Mm-hmm.
that is with personal, professional, financial goals. We find out our employees' personal, professional, financial goals. And then we figure
Mm-hmm.
out a plan for them to be able to reach those goals by working for us.
Right.
And that gives them alignment. They realize the more I work, the closer I get to that goal. And then when they
Mm-hmm.
do reach the goal, we have a celebration like, hey, Mary hit her goal. She was able to take her family to Disney World, or they were able to go to Europe for Christmas, or they got that new boat they were trying to work on. And so that creates the alignment where the employee is going, I want to help this company grow. And obviously they have to be somebody who believes that America needs less medication, not more. So that helps. So that comes into our HR training. So we got to get alignment with our staff
Mm-hmm.
to move forward into the future.
So we are just about to wrap up here. Now, I understand, Dr. Carberry, that you have an offer that you wanted to allow our listeners to take advantage of.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure they go to amiblueprint.com because I just laid it out for them of how,
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
successful to grow your practice. And if they go
Mm-hmm.
there, they can just look at it. And if they like stuff, they can reach out for it. If they would just want to use stuff, they can do that. It's just, we want to offer that to people so they can be more successful because their success helps our success.
Mm-hmm.
Perfectly. Well,
Great.
I'm going to be taking advantage of that opportunity myself.
I always like to add a few more questions. Dr. Joe always loves this too because you're AMI. So at this point, we could have already cut off the interview and we can crop
It gets
everything
scary.
out.
It gets scary in this part, Dr.
But
Carberry.
I mean, I always like to, for the COVID story, with the medical family. I have actually funny on the other side. My husband's sister and my brother-in-law are the frontline COVID doctors. You know what I mean? Like frontline.
Yes.
So it's been something that's been definitely a challenge as I'm obviously a little bit more natural oriented. But how have you found it with, it seemed like the whole COVID thing was really divisive measure more than anything. But how did it work out and play out with the integrated clinics that you work with?
Well, what we did is we went when we got locked down with COVID with like everybody else. We were at our farm in Oregon. So we just started, like, we have recording equipment. We set up studios in our house. We just started putting out a podcast every day at the beginning of COVID on things to do to help your patients get better in this environment. And we've had people, we did it for everybody, not just our clients. We did it for everybody. It was free. And we had a number of people came back to us and said, you helped me so much that I feel like I owe it to you to join your group. And we actually grew during COVID.
Yeah.
Dr. Mike Carberry, thank you very much for your time. Everyone who's listening, go out and go to the amiblueprint.com, which you'll see at the entry of the podcast. We'll have the link there for you. Until next time, Dr. Mike.